We're live. We're
I was
both
waiting to see
here.
if you were going to say it.
You know I'm gonna say it.
We're live. Did you watch any of the lives from before?
No.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have if I were you, but there was something where I was like, I miss my partner. And like, this is what happens when Hannah's not here.
There's no dancing. There's no saying silly things for no reason other than to fill the silence.
Yep. Oh, we can wait a little bit and see who joins. I have a question from Lori that I'm going to answer. Um, and then
One person
I think we'll
already.
try and wrap up
Announce
early
yourself.
today.
Laura.
Laura! Laura, if you have any questions, let us know this week. I know Lori emailed in a question, so I expect her to come say hi to us. Um, but if for whatever reason she's gonna have to miss today, then I'll go through her stuff anyway.
We have two. It's gonna be Lori.
Who is
Laura Lori.
it? Who's
Announce
here?
yourself. Enjoying this way too much. Oh, we're back to one. Technical difficulties.
I love that Hannah just counts out the viewer count. We're one, we're two, we're one.
Where'd they go? Come back.
I was thinking about these lives the other day, and I was like, I probably need to send out more email notifications and stuff and start promoting them more because it's really just like three of us. But like, also, okay, the reason I said I needed to do the like promote the lives more is partially because I like them, but I was like, if it's only going to be a few of us, like, do I change it to like a webinar, like Zoom, and we all just like meet so everyone can contribute? But the lives potentially give us the ability for like people to discover us on Facebook and YouTube and whatever. So,
Yeah.
and then with them being publicly recorded, I feel like it's easier to tell people what's happening.
Yeah.
All right. I know it's only been a couple minutes, but I wanted to do Lori's question.
Cool.
I want to get started on that because there's a few different things I can say about it. And I thought I would like screen share a bit. So we would go into Lori's question. And that way, when she comes to watch this, her question's towards the beginning, especially because it seems like she probably won't be able to come in live today. Okay, so let me see. Share my screen. Okay, so first up, this is Lori's email she sent in. So this is kind of what I'm going to go over. So it says, hey, for the next live session, can we look at coding it so that anytime I insert a link, it defaults to opening in a new tab or window? If I hyperlink to my Amazon store, it'll open a new tab or even interlink to other posts on my site. Is that something others want? Is it bad to do that? As now most of my traffic is mobile. Thoughts? So let me turn off the screen sharing and then we're gonna like switch to Lori's site. And we'll kind of look at the settings on Lori's site. So switching my window over to Lori's site here. All right, so this is Lori's site. And I want to log in and kind of show what she's talking about. I do this every time. Hold on.
Why'd you even do?
Log in, remember me. Okay. Back to this. So Lori's talking about, we can really do this anywhere, but we'll just create a post real quick. Oops. Anytime you link somewhere, whether it's in a button or in like a paragraph, right? So here, when I click link, I can type in this URL, enter. Oh, I love that this one does not have settings. Here we go. Okay, so then once I'm in, like once that link's been added and I click on it, I can click on edit link And that gives the advanced settings where I can click to open it in a new tab. And if it were an affiliate link, I would also probably want to make it no follow. Or if it went to like someone who sponsored the post, then I would click that as sponsored, right? I don't know that affiliate links are sponsor. I think they're just no follow, but don't take my word on that. I'm just tech. So tech wise, you insert the link, you go to advanced, and you can like manually set these to open in a new tab. Same with your button. Type in whatever you want, link it to a URL, and then once it's been added, you have the pencil edit link, and you have the same options here. They look a little different. Like this is just new tab and no follow because they are a little different. But the effect is the same on the front end. They open in a new tab and they get no follow on them. So I'm gonna save this, save draft, create a new tab, and actually I need these to actually go somewhere. So Google, let's do that. Oops, do not publish. We'd really be in trouble. All right, so this is going to take me to Google and it opens in that new tab automatically. So instead of being in the same tab and like just taking me to the new page, it opens in this new tab. Okay, so I want to kind of like start lower down on what Lori was asking about. She asked like, do we even want to do this, especially with like mobile users and things like that? I argue that in a lot of instances we don't. The reason being that it's actually harder for people to find pages when we do this. So the reason people do that we choose to open things in a new tab is we don't want them to like forget about us. So we're like, hey, open this in a separate tab. And then once you close that, you'll find my information, which on desktop I think makes sense. But Lori specifically called out the fact she has so many mobile users. And I don't think that like holds as true on mobile because most people on mobile, like you're so singularly focused that I'm looking at you, Hannah. Like, do you actually close your tabs and then accidentally get back to where you were trying to be? Or do you have to intentionally go back?
I have to go out of my way to like I'm not going out of my way to do anything. So if there's an extra click involved, assume I'm not doing that. And then if I have to figure out how the heck to go back, like I'm probably lost.
When we look at like usability guides and stuff, they recommend not opening things in new tabs because users are more accustomed to using the back button. So if you
Yeah.
open something in a new tab, it's actually harder for people to find than just clicking the back button. And as someone who just spent a week with her grandparents, I can tell you exactly how confusing the internet, like just like complex interfaces are for my grandfather.
I had a question like that this morning from my sister-in-law. She was like, "Why doesn't this link work?" It's like, "'Cause it's not a button. Like you're gonna have to copy that and go stick it somewhere."
Yeah.
She's
My
like, "No,
grandpa
I
actually like
click. Let me click it."
he reads like everything on the screen like twice. So when there's like important notice and it's in bold and red because everyone skips it, he's not skipping it. He reads it.
Mm,
But also like there were a lot of times where like there were so many tabs, he would just close out of them. He didn't look at what they were. He just had to close every tab because he'd get overwhelmed. And then
oh,
if he wanted to go back to something, there is no back button. So he
yeah,
has to go find it again.
yeah.
So I think that's a pretty decent like real world example of the back button really being preferred. Um,
I prefer the back
or
button, but I'm also not closing tabs. I have a friend who every other Friday goes in and removes like 300 tabs for me while we're drinking coffee. It's
yeah,
Corey.
I use new tabs. I just use them when I want it. Like if I'm trying to open it in the same page and you keep opening tabs for me, I do get overwhelmed and I have to start closing tabs. That mostly bothers
Someone
me if it's
else's
on
problem.
that bothers me if it's an internal site. Like if I'm just browsing your site and everything opens in a new tab, why? I
Yeah,
can do that myself if I want to.
yeah.
I know I'm technical. I'm a little more advanced with those type of things, but kind of to answer your question, Lori, from a usability perspective, everyone it's your website. You can choose what you want to do. Most people recommend not to open things in a new tab unless it's necessary because you're losing the back button. Um, and so that would be like probably the official recommendation. I think that that also makes a lot more sense on mobile where those tabs get really like buried and hidden and they're not as useful. Um, but I'm still going to answer your question on how you can default to opening things in a new tab. So we're still going to go over that. So let me read her email again real quick. Is that something others may want? Is it bad? Mostly traffic or mostly mobile traffic. Okay, so I think we've answered those. Let's talk about when you do want to open things in new tabs and you want it to default to that. So a really common example of when we want to force things to open in a new tab is when we're sending someone to an external site. And that's often seen with like affiliate links, or even like if we're in some sort of like recipe share group or something like that, and we're cross-linking our sites. In that type of case, you probably want to open those in a new tab so you're not just like losing that traffic. You want to have your site available to them as well. How do we do that? So in that case, what I'd recommend is a plugin. WordPress doesn't default to that, probably because like browsers don't default to that. Hannah, did you want to say something?
Just listening.
You like leaned in and I was like, oh, a Hannah opinion coming in hot.
No. No, a Hannah confused about how browsers work. This is why
Oh,
you guys get buried so often.
yeah. I had written an article at one point about opening links in new tabs. Um, and one of the big items that like talking points that came up was essentially that like if browsers thought it was a good idea for everything to open in a new tab, they would do it by default. But like there is a default behavior, and that is that everything opens in the same tab. See, this is what I do. If you saw it, I went in and right clicked open a new tab. Yeah, that's what I do when I actually want something in a new tab. Okay, so there are plugins though. If you want to open something in a new tab, there are plugins that help you do that a little bit easier. The one that I've used most often is this first one. Oh wait, there's two of these. Okay, so external links in new window tab, external links no follow, no opener, new window. I think I've actually used this one more. Um, I don't know what the differences are between these. Okay, forces it to perform a hack by altering the target. This is hilarious to me. I would not consider this a hack. If you need a more advanced plugin with more options. Okay, so then this one is more advanced. This is the one I would have recommended. So I'm going to install this, Lori, on your site so I can show everyone. Take a restore point. No, I don't want to restore for adding a plugin. I'm not going to enable any other functionality on this. We're just going to look at the options. No thanks. Weird little pop-up. All right. External links here. Oh my goodness, how do I get okay. All right, so I'm just turning off apply these settings real quick because I don't want anything in this plugin to be activated right now. I'm just going to go through and double check that all these settings are turned off. These are exceptions, so nothing will happen because there's nothing that's turned on. And then all these star things are new. We'll come back to them later. Okay, so then just to show you guys, I'm going to dismiss that, what the settings look like. So what this will do is this plugin will automatically allow or force your external links to open in a new tab. And this is probably what um, would work for Lori based on like how she's linking around to use something like this. Honestly, Lori, I want to present this as an option, and it may make sense for your workflow, but I'm totally going to recommend that you just do the tedious thing. My official recommendation before I dive into all of these is to continue to insert the link, click on that advanced tab, and then open it in a new tab, rather than adding a plugin that'll do this in here. So definitely an option here, and I'll tell you how it works, but I'm totally going to recommend the um, tedious manual method. Okay, so this will automatically apply settings for external links. You can basically force it to always do something you want. So each in a separate new window or tab, and then you can override existing values. So that's going to like force any external link on your site to open in this new tab. And that's probably what you like. This here is probably enough. I would keep these things, no opener, no refer external. They're considered like security things. I don't actually know them well enough to give them a better word than things. But like these two things right here, these two settings, if you were in to enable external links, this is what I think would do what you need. Everything else, you wouldn't need it. You can do like an icon where it'll add a little indicator that it's going to open in a new tab if you want. Totally optional and up to you. You could do that as well for internal links. I wouldn't recommend it. Um, Personally, I don't care for it. And I don't think there's any reason to do that, but it's just the exact same type of settings where you could fill these out and have them all open in a specific type of tab, which doesn't have to be new window, new tab, but probably for your use case would be. Okay, let me refresh this. Make sure nothing is saved. Cool. You can exclude links. So let's say that you want to apply like something to external links, but then there's certain um, like friends or something, for example, or like let's say that you had your own shop site. So if you had like shop.thekitchenwhisperer.net, you could go into this and say, okay, if it's my shop site, you don't have to open it in a new tab, even though like it might be considered an external link. So that's what this would be for here. And then exceptions are going to be like on a particular site. Um, Sorry, that's confusing. These are going to be like, don't run these rules anywhere on the page if they're in a certain place on my site. So instead of being like relative to where you're linking to, it's where the link is showing from on your site. It's a little confusing, but we could dive into those if we needed to. I don't think we do need to. Before I want to make sure that nothing is enabled here. I'm not used to these settings. Okay, these are just pro features, so nothing's enabled for these. They're just showing you what would be here. Okay, so Lori, I'm gonna leave this installed on your site. It's not doing anything right now. If you hate it, delete it. If you wanna use it, you can just turn on the settings that I set in there. Last thing I wanna do on this is I wanted to Google, and I'll just Google in front of you guys. So let me move this, clean up my mess. Open external links in new tab by default. I don't think there's any way to do this in WordPress. And it's going to be a little hard for us to search. But I wanted to see if, so Lori's wording specifically was anytime I insert a link, defaults to always open in a new tab/window. So specifically, like, could she insert her links and always have that check mark enabled? And then she just disables that. So let's say she's linking to more external links than internal links. Therefore, she wants more new tabs rather than same tab, like default behavior. I don't think there's anything that specifically addresses that setting rather than changing all of the links. Okay. Yeah. So basically just what I was looking for is the way to do the tedious route faster. I didn't find a way to do the tedious route faster. I think that plugin that modifies the links themselves is your best bet if you need to do something like that.
Over
Right.
my
I
head.
wish Lori had been there to see all of that and ask questions, but it's something. She'll see it later. Hopefully, it'll help her out. Laura, did you have any questions for me?
I
I feel like
always
I
want
just stopped
to.
being sick and I'm sick again.
Oh, yeah. Do you think it's the new COVID?
I doubt it because I got it from my grandma and she was only sick for like 3 days.
Yep, you just told me
Ooh,
that.
Laura has questions. All right. We're gonna wait for Laura's questions and I'm gonna log into her site, just to prepare.
Just to prepare.
Yeah. I'm also like looking if I should clean stuff up on her site because last week we were talking about, or I was joking about how I leave a mess on sites. I'll go like demo something and then I'll just like leave it there as I scroll off. So I literally can see a page that's empty and it's called Lauren's Draft. I'm just gonna delete that. Just gonna throw that in the trash. Okay. So Laura asks, my homepage is fairly short. Is there a standard or should it be long? I don't know what else to add since I don't have a lot of recipes yet. Cool. We're gonna go look at Laura's page, her homepage. So there's not a standard, Laura, for length of the homepage. A lot of people do longer pages in the industry because they just want to like show more content, like keep people engaged, give that kind of like infinite scroll vibe, without actually having like something that's just, recipes scrolling forever. It does have that more curated feel, and they just like add a lot of sections. So you've already got quite a few sections here. Latest recipes, browse by category, bio section, fan favorites, and then some by category, with testimonials slash comments, another by category, and then we end with the link, I assume, to the recipe index. I think yours is like pretty on par with what a lot of people have. I would say that other people, like with more recipes, might have more categories they're focusing, so their page might just be longer because they have, you know, appetizers, breakfast, dinner, dessert, etc. Like they're just doing a lot more categories on their homepage. I don't think that's necessary whether or not you have a lot of recipes to display. But if you want your page to be longer and have that longer feel, you could definitely do that. I noticed that some of the larger sites are adding in like other features, and so they're breaking up their content with like join my newsletter, pay for this ebook, like learn about my essentially like membership type options, right?
Yeah.
So they have stuff like that. So I think that's also contributing is they want to have all their different like ad type content on their homepage. And so they're breaking that up with content with posts. So I think theirs feel longer partially because of that. Now, this is going to be kind of opinion based, but I think that a shorter homepage can be more powerful in a lot of circumstances where instead of presenting all of your content, it's very curated of if you're this type of user, that type of user, go this way or that way. Like, here's who I am. Like, just a very curated experience where it doesn't need to be long and gets them to click through to a different page that might be more lengthy, but also a better fit for them. One of the benefits of doing something like that, beyond just like having that curated experience, is that you have when you have less content on the page, so we're we're loading fewer images. Um, we don't have like videos that we need, things like that. We're gonna have a better load time. And I'm thinking about like the session. So in our best in blogging videos, Heather Wilkins talked about site speed, and she talked about um, like pages each have individual speed scores, but then your site as a whole has like a site speed score. Um, so like your homepage can do better with speed with less content. It has a lot less HTML, fewer assets to load. Um, just like can be more responsive in that regard if you apply that kind of methodology site wide and it works for your user experience, and that could also improve your site wide scores. In general, I don't think most people are. Your homepage speed is not as important as your post speed. So if you want a longer homepage, I wouldn't take my opinion and what I'm saying here about speed as like oh, I need to shorten my homepage because I need it to be faster. People are like either already looking for you and they're going to find your homepage either way, or they're probably looking for something else and they're going to stumble onto your site through your post page. And that's why you want those to be faster, in my opinion. Then when they come to your homepage, the speed difference is going to be negligible for most people, especially if you're running core WordPress block theme, which you are, Laura. So I wouldn't say you need to make it longer. I think shorter and curated, in my opinion, is nicer, and it does have the speed benefit. But if you wanted it to be longer, which I see from your comment you don't, but if you did, make it longer. Like, the stakes are not that high. Sure. Cool. Anything else, Laura? Making me and Hannah bigger on here. So my dancing. I think I need to re-dye my hair, guys, so I look fancy when I'm on video.
All for the video, all for the gram.
All for the gram. Okay, Laura, if you don't have any other questions, I think I'm going to wrap up early this week. It's kind of a good week because I have to start transitioning to a 3-hour time difference again. And I brought home a cold with me. So I know you've gone over ungrouping, editing, and regrouping, but that's still a little confusing. Ooh. Let's look at it. I have to share my screen again. Give me a second. Here we go. Don't worry, I'll make a new page and we'll call it Lauren's Draft again, just to be funny. So I just deleted this. Okay, so let me think about how I want to do this. I might insert a pattern and we'll adjust things from there. So Laura, I'm gonna kind of play around with this and talk about it in general. What I want you to do is if there's something that I go over and that's kind of like what's confusing to you, give me a shout. So I can go into that a little bit more in depth. Because with a topic like ungrouping, editing, and regrouping, I'm not really sure what is most confusing there. So I'm going to do something kind of broad. And I'm not sure if that'll make it more confusing or less confusing. But let's dive in and try it anyway. So just as an example, let's insert, this is a good one. I feel like it's a pretty complicated layout. So this is a pattern. And then inside of here, there's going to be a bunch of groups, and the groups can be called different things. They could be called a group, they could be called a row, they could be called a stack, they could be called a grid. Those are all like variations of a group. And what groups allow us to do is associate content together and apply styles. So like there's some things that like if you put things in a group, then it's easier for you to control the spacing between them. You can add like a background or a border around all of that content, that sort of thing. And the way it does that is because it adds like a little bit of HTML that associates everything together. And I'll actually show you that HTML. That might be helpful. But let's look at the outline. So this right here, that little icon to the left of text row, that indicates that this is a group. And anytime something has a dropdown like this, not anytime, but a lot of the times, those are groups. So here, row, this is a type of group. Grid, this is a type of group. Group, 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 group. So I have lots of groups here. This is a page, so I'm going to publish this one. We'll delete it. But just to show you what the HTML side of this looks like. So this right here, this div is at top level called text. What was it called actually? Text row. So this is the group that was text row. And then when I expand that, it has two groups inside of it. Those are row and grid. So they're still both like div. They just have a class on the front end that says how it needs to be laid out, and that's associated with like the row and grid group variations. And we can keep going through and recognizing the different groups here. So like there's 3 groups inside of that grid. If I look here, there's 3 groups here. And so these like div elements, these each represent groups. And because everything inside of them, like when I expand this particular div, it has a div h3 and paragraph tag inside of it. Because these are all inside of this one div, they're associated together. And so then I can, on that parent group, I can add styles, and then everything inside, like nested in it, inside of that group, inherits some of those styles, depending on CSS and HTML and stuff we don't have to get into. Okay, so that's a little bit of context, maybe helpful, maybe not, no worries. But when it comes to like ungrouping and grouping things, the reason that we would want to do that is almost always going to be either for like visual hierarchy for our own understanding. So when I go into a post, I often group related content just to keep it organized for myself because I use this list view all the time. Or it's getting grouped because I want to apply the same styles to everything underneath it or to the container around it, right? So here, this top level, this not top level, but this group right here correlates to the blue box. Everything inside of it is part of that group. So I have a row that contains an image. I have this header that says recipe goals, and then I have paragraph underneath. Because those are grouped together, I have block styles that can be applied, and they change the content of the group, like multiple paragraphs. When I change the settings on this group, it's inherited by both of those paragraphs. I'm not having to style both of those paragraphs independently. So you can see the line height increases, or if I change the font, both of the paragraphs are seeing that change. The reason this heading isn't is because it has like different settings that are applied to headings that aren't getting inherited, especially here. It says like, this is large. So grouping, it might be because we want to apply styles to everything that's nested underneath it, like a font line height or something like that. It could be that we want to style the container itself. So here, like how we have padding and then a background color. Oops, that's the border color, this background color. Those sort of things happen because of groups. Now, if you don't want those styles anymore, or you're trying to like undo your layout, you would probably come in and ungroup things. But see how this like isn't as expected. This is happening because it's directly inside of a grid, and a grid displays each item in a new cell, right? So because we're inside of a grid here, that's part of the reason we were using groups, is to control the layout, to get all of these to stack on top of each other while having the items themselves be able to go through a grid. So now if I regroup them, you can see they don't have the styles they had before because those group styles aren't applied to the group yet, but they do have like kind of layout things happening in the sense that they're all stacked together and the group itself is part of a grid. So again, getting a little bit technical, and this is how like HTML works, but you can see that like sometimes we need groups because we want to style the content nested. Sometimes we want to style the group itself, or maybe we're even doing it because it's helping us control the layout along with other group variations. What I would say, so your question was, you've gone over ungrouping, editing, and regrouping. Usually I would say you probably don't need to ungroup things. If you want to edit something, I would click into whatever you want to edit. Sometimes you have to double click on something or like you have to be careful where you click in order to select the right element. Use the list view to dive into those groups or like get out of them. Like if this group didn't have padding on it, well, this is a good one right here. It's pretty hard for me to select the group. Let me make it white so you can see. If I'm trying, this is selecting the paragraph. This is selecting the paragraph. Like because there's no padding on this, I can't really select this group. I'm trying to select this item here and I can't get this line to be blue. So using this list view would be my recommendation, and then just like not ungrouping things in most circumstances. I think more likely you do need to apply groups in order to achieve one of the aforementioned goals of styling nested items, the group itself, or making a layout. One of the most common reasons that I use groups for non-advanced layouts, so even if I was just like heading, paragraph, 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 heading, heading, something like this, right? Okay, so the most common reason that I would use a group in just like a regular post like this, just like not some sort of layout, but like content top to bottom, is because I want all of these paragraphs and this heading to be associated together. And right now you can see that like, let me save this and view it on the front end. Oh, it's a little bit lost because of the opt-in. But basically, there's an equal amount of spacing between like the heading, the paragraph, the paragraph, the paragraph, the heading. And so it can be hard to visually recognize that information is grouped together. The headings help like break it up, but often what I do is I group this content together. So I'm just like, I clicked anywhere in this first one and then I shift clicked on this last one. And even though only some of this content is selected, you can see here in the sidebar that all 4 of the blocks are selected. And then I click to group them. And when they're all nested together, I can come in here and just decrease the block spacing between them a little. That's one of the most common reasons that I use groups, is to just change that spacing so that all the items inside of the group are better associated with each other. I also use it on almost all of my landing pages because I come in here and I rename my group to whatever the heading was. So it'd be like why buy. And then my next one, which would have paragraphs. And this one would also have some paragraphs. I would group these and then I would match this to whatever the topic is, rename by now. And this one could be like payment plans. So that's the most common reason I use groups. Actually, the most common reason I use groups is because I like to make fancy layouts. But when it comes to like creating content and working the way that most bloggers would. It's because I want to associate content. Um, I will hold on real quick. Let me show you. You can also select and click shift, select another. So let me show you like here, shift, select all of those. And I'm just gonna make all those look kind of the same. Ooh, whoops. Um, I got distracted because I wanted to go do that real quick. Oh, I wanted to say that even though I use that for grouping, it is actually really important to know how grouping impacts your ads. So if you're running ads on your site, the way that you group your content can impact how your ads show on your site and how and that could impact your revenue because like maybe not as many as possible can show on there or something like that. I can't speak to exactly how that works because I haven't spoken with the ad companies about it recently. And I think that it even can change from site to site how your site was configured. But essentially, in the past, there have been cases where a, an ad cannot insert inside of a group. And so, if that were the case, you'd need to know that by grouping this content, you are risking not having any ads show in there, and therefore having your ad placement not optimized and your revenue potentially negatively impacted. So I would be careful with using groups too liberally in your posts, just for that reason alone. I would stick, unless you know how groups impact your ad layout, I would stick with using them just for like designed blocks. And then for your normal like heading paragraphs, I wouldn't group them. Like I do it on my landing pages, but on your posts, just write your content in and don't group it unless it's necessary. Um, we've also seen, I'm trying to think, some people have grouped things and it's caused problems, and it was something besides ads. I think it was based on like people who were maybe using automatic block inserter. And so they didn't realize like something wasn't going to get inserted because a group makes it top level. So um, probably not super relevant here. Laura, were there any like, is there something about groups that I've said or not said? Like you want to know some particular example that I could look at for you? Okay, cool. Laura says it looks great. Excellent. I said earlier that like if there's a drop down, that's often because it's inside of a group. Technically, for semantics, like a cover is not a group, but it does have drop downs. Same with like columns. So it's not always the case that a drop down means that it's a group, um, because a group is like the actual name of a type of block in WordPress. But content that is nested like this does have group-like qualities in the sense that like they will inherit styles from upper level elements, from parent elements. So like for this cover, if I told it that I wanted my text to have that really tall line height, you can see that the elements that are nested inside of it do inherit that. So it does kind of they're like groups. A little confusing still. Cool. Well, I'm glad that helped, Laura. It was a challenge for me to use some of these words the way that they're used by WordPress and the way that like you think of a group generically. Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we shall wrap up. 15 whole minutes early.
Woohoo!
We say woohoo, but like, what are we gonna do with our time now?
Now?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am I'm excited to see you next week, Laura.
Yeah.
I'll send this video over to Lori so she has the answer to her question. Um, and then next week we'll have more questions, I bet. I bet there'll be new things we could talk about.
All the things.
All right, guys. I hope everyone's having a fabulous summer.
Mhm. Have a good
Bye,
week.
guys.